Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Gospel Tech Podcast. My name is Nathan Sutherland, and this podcast is dedicated to helping families love God and use tech. Today, we are jumping into a two-part series on parenting video games well. I'm excited for this series because I believe we can do this really, really simply. That doesn't mean it's easy, but parenting video games well simply takes intentionality and making sure we framed the conversation correctly. If you're not familiar at all with my history with video games, you should have the disclaimer up front. I no longer play video games. I think they're awesome. I played them lots growing up and loved them, and came to a spot where the Holy Spirit of God had to grab me during a sermon, and I was heavily convicted. The pastor asked a very simple question, but it was in the context of a statement, actually. The question was, are we trusting God with our joy in our life? And the context was, if you're asking God to help you manage your sins, you're praying the wrong prayer. God doesn't manage sin, he kills it. And that previous night, I had yet another gaming bout that went well past my timelines, and I was very frustrated at my lack of willpower and self-control. And at 2 a.m., I'd asked God to help me with my self-control. I said, God, help video games not be a problem. Can I love Anna? Can I be a great teacher? Can I do the work you've called me to do? I didn't have any kids yet, but could I just do well at life? Amen. Went to bed, woke up, went to church. God asked this question about, if you're asking God to help me manage sin. So that was May 15th, 2011. I have not played a game since. That was a cold turkey day for me. It was not the first day I'd realized I had an issue. That went all the way back to high school, when I realized I was starting to dodge people to get more game time, or that I was processing my negative emotions through video games, or for that matter, all my good emotions. When I had a great day, I wanted to play video games to celebrate. And when I had people I liked, I wanted to play video games because the people I like are even more fun when they're around video games I like. And then all of a sudden, I'm just not dealing with hard feelings and running to video games right after something hard happens. And I'm not around people I like because, well, frankly, they don't always want to play video games, and then I don't hang out with them. And I got to the point where now I'm an adult that I'm running on a lot of momentum of positive, healthy choices in the past, but they're not reflected in my gaming decisions. My gaming is taking me away from who I want to become. And in praying for God to help me be better, he very gently and lovingly responded with, okay, give it to me. I'm like, ooh, yeah, about that. How about you just make it better and I get to keep it? That was the struggle for years. That brought me to May 15th, 2011. I give you all that context up front because giving up video games is actually what caused me to have an awkward amount of spare time as an adult. Didn't know what to do with my life, so I started volunteering with Young Life. That led me to realize I want to do this more with my life. So I started a nonprofit. Anna and I prayed through that 2016 to 2019. And June 2019 is when I stepped out of the classroom and began full-time speaking and running the nonprofit. Flint and Iron was the original, still works in the public forum. So I go to public schools and organizations. And then Gospel Tech is the church-specific one where we share the gospel and talk about how do we love God, and from our love of God, use the best tech well. That all came because God asked me, do you trust me to be better than your video games? Do you trust me to fulfill you and to uphold you and to uplift you and to amaze you more than your favorite video games? And the answer for many, many years was no. And it ended with all right, I'll let you try. And it turns out God's even better than video games, folks. You heard it here first. But in this conversation today, what we're talking about when parenting, the reason I had to split it into two is because I want you to be able to do this well. And I believe it is very accessible to all sorts of people. Some of you with gaming backgrounds, some of you who love video games, some of you who had self-destructive habits with video games, but we are talking just video games. Yes, it applies to other tech and other areas of your life. But the reason we're talking just video games is I want to address first the three things that we do wrong when parenting video games. Like if video games go sideways in your life and you go, that's not what I expected it to look like. You've used that reset that we talk about where you looked at relationships and emotions and sleep and enjoyment and time, and you go, hey, your relationships get worse with video games, or your emotions are less stable, or your sleep is interrupted. Like you go through a reset and you go, oh, this is wrong. Then you might be confused at okay, but why? Where are we missing it? These are the three main areas we're going to go awry. Some of you play video games or have video games as part of your family, or your kids play video games, and it's great. And you watch your children flourish. Super cool. That does not apply to you then. What we're talking about today is in parenting video games, what are the three things we get it wrong? And that then gives us steps forward because now we can correct things. And the second part is more about like the tangible aspects of, okay, we've decided video games are a good fit, or we'll address how do we make sure we decide that video games are a good fit. I'll actually bring up reset in the next one, not in this one. And then after that, how do we move forward with picking the right game? So the 3 ways we get video games wrong are: first, we ask, will they have fun? Second is we fall prey to the cul-de-sac argument. And third is we take the path of least resistance. So first, will they have fun? This is generally where most of our questions about video games stop. We simply have a child who says, Mom or Dad, can I play this game? And we go, yeah, it seems like it's a fun game. Go nuts. And we don't ask any further questions. And frankly, that's the wrong question. The question we need to be asking isn't simply, will this feel good? There's lots of behaviors we don't want our children to participate in that aren't necessarily morally wrong. Take gambling, for example. It will be very exciting. I'm sure there are people that have healthy limits for that. Like, again, we have rules around this for a reason. It's dangerous at certain ages. The outcomes are often outsized negative towards compared to positive, especially when you talk about young people and long-term consequences. So will they have fun with video games is the wrong question. What we need to be asking with our children is this a high priority for us? The reason we need to ask that is because it's not always morally wrong. It's not always even unwise. Like, I use examples like gambling and alcohol to make a point, but video games is not always like gambling or alcohol. It can be done well. It can be perfectly age appropriate, but that doesn't mean it's a high enough priority to make space for in your calendar. Let me think through this. Ephesians 5:15-16 says, look carefully then to how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of the time because the days are evil. Our call as Christians is to be present in this life where God has planted us like a mustard seed in a garden. He's planted you in your community, in your family, in your school or co-op, in your church, wherever God's got you on this planet. God is working in you and then working through you. In you to make you look more like Jesus, and through you to see his kingdom come and his will be done wherever he's put you. I love that. Sometimes we don't put it as a high enough priority. Think about it like this. So I'm going to use my family's kids, for example, because it works. And you'll be able to adjust to your family. My children go to school 5 days a week. So if they're leaving the school or for school at 8 a.m. and they get home at, let's say 3:30, school gets out at like 3:15. They're probably not back at 3:30, but let's 3:30 to 4 is kind of our window. So if they're at school in that time and they wake up, say at 6:30, they have about 7 blocks of free time if we break it into 30-minute chunks, assuming they're not playing a sport. So they wake up at 6:30. They don't get discretionary time really in the morning because they're going to wake up. They have a list of things they're going to do that involves like read your Bible, play your piano or your clarinet, do your math, eat breakfast with the family, help clean up the kitchen. Like, they've got their tasks, and very rarely do they finish that. And we've talked about this before, my desire to like read the Bible with my family, like that's going in the morning. That's our priorities. So like, you don't have discretionary time. Then you go to school, then you come back. It's now 4, let's say. You don't have piano on this day. You don't have sports. So from 4 to 5:30, maybe 6, you've got discretionary time. Let's call that 4 chunks. Let's say you eat at 6 and your kids aren't helping make the meal. They've got 4 30-minute chunks right there. You eat a meal. You're done by 7. You've cleaned up, kids did their chores. So between 7 and 8, let's call it 8. They've got 2 more chunks. You're at 6 blocks right now of time. Now, we need to stop by 8 because I'm assuming your child's going to bed by 9 and you need to be off tech an hour before bed. So you've got 6 discretionary blocks available for tech time, but let's say they go all the way till 8:30 with just general discretionary time. That's where we get our 7 blocks. And then you start your bedtime routine. You got to put your jammies on, brush your teeth, and read a book, read scripture, read together, whatever you do. But you've got 7 30-minute blocks in a day, discretionary. You play a sport, you're losing at least 3 of those, maybe 4. So you're down to 3 discretionary blocks. I don't know about your kids, but my kids can't do so much as like a simple art project without it taking 30 minutes. Like, we're not doing multiple activities in a 30-minute chunk. Like, it doesn't happen. Any basic task, even if we're just like cleaning the house, you're going to be cleaning for about 25, 30 minutes. Like, even if it's 1 task or 5 tasks, like you're going to be doing 1 activity. 7 of these things in a day. We're going to be wise about how we spend them. That's not a lot. Your kid has passions and interests and things he or she wants to do. We need to be intentional with using that time well and asking ourselves, does this make the most sense for how our children will use their time? I bring this up because it was all too real. So full disclosure, I own a gaming console. Now, again, I don't play video games. But man, it must have been 3 years ago now. There's a company out of Seattle called Analogue, Analogue. Analogue makes classic gaming systems that play the original cartridges. So they're not emulators that are uploaded onto a chip or something. You're using the original cartridges. You're using an original controller format, but they're designed to work on HDMI TVs, 4K, all the stuff. And so I bought one of these and I was like, this is going to be amazing. I'm going to have my children play my favorite games. I started buying original Nintendo games and I was like, I don't have to play them, or Super Nintendo games. I don't have to play them, but I want my children to have the experience of just like the awe and amazement. They don't play, blockbuster games on your modern consoles or PCs. So I want them to have Legend of Zelda, and I want them to have Mega Man, and I want them to have these experiences I had, Donkey Kong. Like I want them to experience these games and the awe and wonder that I experienced as a child that was so cool. So I bought the console and I hid it. And I was like, we won't tell them yet, but we'll bust it out one like Christmas break, like sometime when it's not going to distract from something we need to do. And so last year, 2024, I was like, I'm going to break out the system now and I'm going to show them. And as I was going, it was the day of, I'm like, Anna, we talked about this, we're going to do it. And she's like, wait, before you do, which activity would you not want our children to do today so they have time for this game? And at first that might sound like an unfair question, because it is. But if you think through that question, it's very loving and it makes you pause. It makes you focus on priority. And I was like, man, my kids aren't always brimming with contentment, and they're not always super enthused about whatever activity they have in front of them. And one of them, frankly, can be a bit of a grumpy bear sometimes, and he gets involuntary hugs right now, which means he'll be grunting and stomping around my home, and I will just go bear hug him and pick his feet up off the ground until I feel that hug is complete. And pretty soon he'll be so big, he'll just rip my arms off and beat me with them. But until that day comes, involuntary hugs are still a thing. They're not. The reason I bring that up is that I'm not saying they're always super pumped about the activities they have available to them, but the activities they do bring out amazing things in them. And I love watching them do the things they do. And there's nothing I'm like, man, I wish they did that less so they could play this video game. I want them to play the video game. Nothing morally wrong with the games on my to-do list, and I already own it. So it's not like I'm putting a huge cash outlay to make this happen. It just isn't a high enough priority. And by the way, it's been over a year since that conversation, and there's still not been a day where I'm like, this is the day it should happen. Not saying it's never going to happen. I haven't sold it. And by the way, the resale value on those things is nuts. They're selling a Nintendo 64 one right now. If you can justify this in your family, I strongly recommend an N64. On your modern TV playing original console games, come on. That'd be amazing. And it doesn't make sense in my family. It's not a high enough priority. That's the first question we have to ask. Not, will they have fun? Sure, they're going to have fun. They're games. They're intended to be fun. They're very high octane. These original Super Nintendo games have very minimal behavioral design in terms of engagement because they're not connected to the internet. No one's tracking play stats. So Halo was really the first game with a behavioral psychologist on the team directing. There were some tricks of the trade. How do you make your game engaging, and how do you make, leveling exciting and those kinds of things? But the behavioral psychologists weren't on the team going, oh, no, we could make this more engaging and harder to put down if we add this kind of feedback or this kind of loot drop or this kind of enemy or this kind of music. So we want to recognize these games aren't going to be quite as engaging. And I totally distracted myself with that. I apologize. And the goal is having the highest priorities. You only have 7 areas of your life max in a day of the school year where you have that kind of discretionary time. And what are you giving up to say yes to this? So that's really our first question. That's the first spot we go wrong when parenting video games. The second place we go wrong is that we fall prey to the digital cul-de-sac argument. The digital cul-de-sac argument sounds like this. Oh, so hold on. Before I do this. Parents, as we strive to raise kids who love God and use tech, it's intimidating to look at this next stage of life and think about what academics may look like for them. When you're thinking about college, consider George Fox University for your children because of 3 things. First, it's going to give you a more intimate, known environment where they have a focus on being known personally, academically, and spiritually. Your child will grow in their faith. 93% of undergrad students at George Fox last year, through the 2025 academic year, said that being at George Fox has helped them grow in their relationship with Jesus. We also want them to grow academically, which means being a part of a university with rigorous academic standards and opportunities to be engaged. They have a nationally recognized engineering, nursing, and education programs, as well as chances to study abroad here within the U.S. and then internationally. And finally, personally, to be part of a vibrant campus atmosphere where you can play intramural sports or part of their NCAA Division III athletic programs with 23 sports available. The goal here is to go to a place that's going to support your goals, not try to make you support theirs. To have that goal be to raise you up to be all God's called you to be, and to truly equip your young person with in my case, my sons or my daughter, to love God, and then from their love of God to go wherever God has called them. And that includes being equipped with a degree that'll help them do that, to be missionally equipped to love and serve others, to lead where God has planted them, and to know the gospel for themselves, to be able to share it with others. So George Fox University is an amazing resource for our kids, for our community here in the Northwest, and for anyone who's looking to raise up a young person who can love God and from that, love others. Let me make sure I've been clear. We ask, will they have fun? We should ask, is this a high priority? That was one. Two is we ask, or we fall prey to the everyone's doing it, the digital cul-de-sac. So this argument sounds like my child needs to have friends. All of my child's peers are on this or that video game. Therefore, my child must play that video game so that my child can have friends. And logically, that's true in that the other kids are probably all playing that game. That's probably real. And you've seen this with any number of games that have gone around, whether it be some iteration of a Roblox game or Among Us or Halo or just whatever the game might be. It's true. Probably everyone plays that. Or Fortnite. That one's been around for all the years now. And it's true, if he's not on that game, he's not going to be, or she is not going to be with friends from school or from church or from co-op, whatever. Okay, so I'm agreeing to both of those. There is a digital cul-de-sac that kids are going to, and if your child doesn't go to that cul-de-sac, your child will not be with those friends. But three, the extension that therefore not playing that game means you won't have friends. Let's take a quick step back. Being a friend requires three things. First, we need mutual respect, which means I value you, you value me. We are equals. We both have equal say. We are both in this as individuals who have value the same as the other person. Two, yes, we're the equal value, and therefore I make you a priority. Priority meaning that I say no to something to say yes to you, just like with the video games in the first conversation. I'm going to say no to something in my life so I can say yes to this video game. True in friendship. If we're equal, then other things that are not as valuable as you get a no so that I can say yes. Yes to make a phone call to you, yes to make space. This is why we don't have infinite numbers of friends, because we simply can't support them. I have to say no to someone so I can say yes to someone else. And it's not that I don't like this person and I don't value them or they're not helpful to me or God hasn't used them. It simply means they can't be a priority friend. I can't say yes to everyone. I have to say no to someone and prioritize someone else, and other people simply just fall off the schedule. That's not bad. Yes, the Lord asks us to reorder that occasionally, but a friend makes you a priority. A friend sees you as an equal, and a friend will share real world experiences with you. Digital spaces can support friendship, and they can supplement friendship in certain cases, but more often than not, you are not a friend. More often than not, you are a squad member. You're playing that game. What you described to me there in the cul-de-sac is not a group of friends playing a game. It's a bunch of people playing a game that happens to be with others they call friends. The reason I know that, those individuals are not priorities. The video game is. How do you know? You have a bad day or you don't make it on the game, and now you say, I don't have friends because I'm not on the game. It is possible to play a video game with your friends. In fact, I have many, many friends. Actually, still as an adult. I have multiple friends that I played with video games with in junior high and high school. They were actually part of the reason I knew I had a problem, because I watched our relationship getting distanced by the fact I kept choosing video games over them. They may not have noticed it immediately, but I was watching my heart pivot more towards, but get back to video games. Those people are kind of inconvenient. And I was like, no, I like these people. They like me. God has used them. I want them in my life. And if video games are costing me these individuals, maybe video games are my problem and the people aren't. That's not something we would recognize when our friends are only digital. We only have them because we're in the same group or clan or squad. And when life happens, they choose the video game and say, come back anytime. We're always here for you on this server. The concern with that is as soon as you make yourself convenient, you make yourself disposable. You could be very good friends with an individual, but they're only one server, one tab, one game switch away from you basically never existing. And that is very concerning with our young people. I see this happen a lot with young men believing this cul-de-sac lie. So please play video games with your friends, but not for friends. Parents, when we parent video games, we must make sure that our children are playing video games with friends, not for friends, which means they know them in real life, they have shared experiences, this person is an equal and makes them a priority, and they happen to play some video games together. Maybe it's digitally, where they're both in front of their own screens playing. That's my least favorite kind of gaming, by the way. Sometimes it's analog and they're in the real world. Again, that Nintendo 64 from Analog, where they can play on the same screen, split screen. Yeah, it's inconvenient. Yeah, the games aren't as well built because they're 20 years old. 30 years old. But it is a real life shared experience. So my kids do play video games. My kids have a couple friends where they'll go over to their house, they play with these friends, and they kind of handle it like watching a movie. There's a certain amount of time, they go and play a game. They really like Golf on the Switch and Mario Kart. So they'll play those. Sometimes it's like an hour, and then they put it down and they go and play their other things. They play tag with flashlights or by hand. They play ping pong. They play whatever game they make up. One of my favorite things that Owen does with some of his friends is he makes a baseball game. He has cards, so he saved up his money. He got a whole season worth of MLB cards. We're just talking playing cards. They draw it on a huge piece of butcher paper, a baseball diamond and outfield. They flip their cards for any given team, and then they've made up rules using a mix of dice and playing cards, like regular poker cards, if you will. And they make games, and then they have a bracket. And then each time these friends come over, they like continue their league. So basically they made 2K, but with paper and cards. And it's fantastic to watch, and they enjoy it. And they have to troubleshoot when they get themselves worked into a corner. Like, who wins this role? The best pitcher in the league or the best hitter in the league? Like, I don't know. We didn't really think it through, but that's incredibly valuable. And I love it. And I don't expect it to last forever. I don't think he'll be doing this for the rest of his life. But it's a very sweet season with the same friends that he might play a video game with. So they're not losing their joy or their amazement or their ability to have fun at the pace of real life. And they happen to play a video game with friends, not for them. What do you need to do if your child is in a situation where he or she is playing video games for friends? They just want to belong, and this area gives them an area to belong. Recognize that they want to belong, first and foremost. Second, find them a peer group, not just with a shared hobby, but with a shared goal, the goal of belonging. It might be your youth or student group. It might be an organization you can team up with. It will generally happen in real life. So go get them into something that happens in your community that they can serve someone else, so like a local food bank, or they can be engaged in a collective sport. Certainly could work. Or maybe just an interesting idea, like they can invite a friend from school to go geocaching or to go shoot bows and arrows at the local archery range, or something that happens where conversation and hanging out can be a part of it. Find one person with a shared goal of belonging at the pace of real life. Someone from your co-op, someone from your school, someone from your church, someone from your community, that you can make inroads and intentions, because you only need one friend. And I'd say you cap out somewhere around 3 or 4, like close, deliberate friends. And then from that, you can have your larger circle of friends, and then acquaintances, and then just community members that you wave at, they recognize you, but you may not have a lot of overlap in life. Don't fall prey to the cul-de-sac. Don't play games for friends, play them with friends. That's the second area we need a good reminder when it comes to what are we doing here with video games as parents, and how can we parent them better. Third is we take the path of least resistance. This is something we do wrong when parenting video games. The path of least resistance means our children just ask us enough and we say, okay. And what we need to ask is, does this game make my child better? Now, that might sound like a mean question. Be like, what? That's not even fair. This is just supposed to be for fun. But we do this with everything. We do this with the food they eat. When my kids ask for sweets constantly, and I know that one of them refunds food when he eats too much sweets, it's unloving to say yes. I did it once. We had a great Papa trip. We were going camping with both grandpas. We stopped by a restaurant. Kids asked for ice cream first. I'm like, yeah, we're going on a camping trip with the grandpas. Let's eat our ice cream first. And it ruined the day. Like, they were physically sick for the next 6 hours because they ate high-fat, high-sugar ice cream on an empty stomach midday. It was a terrible parenting choice, and it was unloving, and it wrecked part of their trip. That was bad of me. We can do the same thing with video games. We do the same thing with what they watch. Our children, when they were little, just Owen and Henry, we were suggested a show. We watched it. The boys immediately started bickering more, just fighting about nothing. And Owen started sassing mom more, where he would say no defiantly to things that he would never say no to. Like, just basically like, hey, Owen, come grab your water. No! It was a 1-to-1 correlation with this show. So we quit watching the show because we don't hate our children. And we go, you know what? We're going to add Daniel Tiger instead of this show. And it was great. And our children have turned out fine so far. Like, they weren't wrecked by Daniel Tiger. But the other show seemed to show some promise in doing some damage. We do it with what they read. There are books that cause unhealthy fear and anxiety or even escapism. There was a book series I was reading through high school into college that was so enthralling. It wasn't even done yet. I got through book 4 and I was like, this is eating every waking moment of my life. It's acting like a video game, but it's a book. But like, I need to stop and walk away. And I didn't realize at the time all that was probably at stake in my heart and mind, because I had some tendencies to escape that I didn't know were really a problem yet. But I did see that it was confusing because it was a book and I didn't know that could happen. It can happen with a book. We can spend so much time running to our little cave of wonders that we never actually live in the world God's planted us in. So with what they read, we do this with what they listen to. There's absolutely music that's inspirational or that's challenging and addresses really important topics. I know there's songs by Billie Eilish, for example, that do a great job of addressing hard situations. But that doesn't mean your teenager should listen to them. And if you watch the music start to tank your child's emotions or sleep or relationships, probably remove that unhealthy music and replace it with something that focuses on what's true and hopeful and reminds them of who they are and who God is. And then who they hang out with. We know that bad company corrupts good character. 1 Corinthians 15:33. We look at the friends our kids hang out with and the friends that our kids are to others, and we go, you know what? This is or this is not positive. So we do the same thing with games. We simply let our children choose games that are going to improve who they are in Christ. It is possible to do. We do it with, again, what we eat, what we watch, what our kids read, what they listen to, who they hang out with, and we can do it with the games they play as well. I bring all this up because when we parent games poorly, we're really doing it in one of 3 areas. We ask, will they have fun rather than is this a high priority? We think about the cul-de-sac of friends rather than are these actually friends, people that are going to share life with us? And we take the path of least resistance rather than asking, does this make my child better? We'll talk next week more about how do we pick the right games and how do we know if it's safe, ready, good. But for today, I hope this was encouraging to you and equips you to talk about games well with your family. If you have any questions, reach out to me, Nathan@gospeltech.net, or at LoveGodUseTech on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And join us next week as we continue this conversation both about video games and how we can raise kids who love God and use tech. I'll talk to you then.